Hello, BookTube. The other day, in fact, 2 days in this week, in the mail, I got blank journals that were sent to me by you. I think I have one of them within reach here. Yes, this was one of them. These blank leather-bound journals. This one's a little on the small side. The other one was bigger than this, and they join a small collection of them that I have. And I think probably they were sent to me as in acknowledgement of the fact that I've mentioned that I keep a journal on this channel. I mentioned that I've kept a journal for decades and decades and decades. I do it all the time, every day. I keep a journal every day, and I think that's probably why some of you were nice enough to send me pretty journal volumes. I have been contemplating leaving the journal volume that I'm working in now. It's a big uh, sketchbook, big one of those marbled black covers with the blank white pages. And it's oversized. It's much bigger than that book. Perfect for sketching. Perfect for including documents, folding documents, and putting them in there. But a little unwieldy to write in. It doesn't fit comfortably on the lap. So I've been thinking about leaving it, even though we're going into April. So I've been thinking of leaving it and going to some new journal volume. So getting those in the mail was really good. Um, and I haven't decided yet whether or not I want to do that. But a lot in the course of talking about that, a lot of you wanted more, maybe a little more content on keeping a journal. And I thought I'd oblige since I've been doing it forever. It's certainly something I love to talk about. And I think we should probably I want to make a few suggestions and I want to make a few recommendations. And they're based on the difference between a journal and a diary. They are technically the same thing. The word technically means the same thing, but they have different connotations. A diary is a receptacle for effusion, which is why we associate it with teenagers. Teenagers keep diaries because they're going to their diary in order to pour out their heart. That phrase often occurs in connection with a mention of diaries. Uh, and that's why they're so embarrassing to read years later and also so boring to read, because that's usually what they are. It's usually just an infusion of what is the nature of love, or I can't believe I was rejected, or I so much want this thing or this person. And that's dull. I mean, that's it. The only person who could possibly find that interesting would be the person who is experiencing it, and only while they're writing it, not reading it, even a day later. Whereas journaling it's a diary, but it's kept by an adult who is not going there to effuse, merely to effuse. And I would say not to effuse at all. Because even though it's the most private kind of writing, your journal does have a reader, and that is you. It's a future you. And a future you is going to be bored cross-eyed by 10 pages of effusion about a broken heart, centering around a person whose name they can barely remember. But they're going to be fascinated by what you ate and what was on TV and when. They're going to be fascinated with all those little details of life that they have since forgotten. And maybe with a little bit of what you thought about them, or a lot of what you thought about them, provided it can fit in a constrained space. Because one of the strong suggestions that I want to make here for keeping a journal is that you confine the day's entry to one page. Don't effuse. Don't go on page after page after page. Not because you're supposed to lie to your journal, no, but because that's boring. It's when you have gone from keeping a diary where you just pour out your heart to keeping a journal where you chronicle your times, your life, your times, your mind. The difference between those two things is control, and controlled prose will not just go on and on and on. And one of the benefits of keeping a journal, I mentioned this yesterday, is that it teaches that kind of writing control. It does it like nothing else I know of. Even the stereotypical thing that writers will say for teaching writing control is, first, to read an enormous amount. Don't tell today's young crop of YA readers, or YA writers, who absolutely don't read anything except books written this year by their own peers that they know, and scorn the idea of reading anything else. They scorn it. Not only that they don't get around to doing it, or they're lazy, it's that they hate the idea. They'll mock you if you bring it up. But typically writers will say, A, read a lot, and B, write a lot. Write 1,000 words a day, 2,000 words a day, 5,000 words a day. Typically writers will say that is the way to improve your thought, your craft, which improves your thinking. But keeping a journal is the best way to do that. It's the most painless way. It's the way that does not require inspiration. You have ready-made material to hand. And if you're keeping a journal as an adult, then I mentioned this yesterday, what you will do either first thing in the morning when you're looking back on the previous day, or at sundown or at night when you're looking back at the day you've just lived, what you'll be doing in that case is sitting back, taking a deep breath, and thinking about the day. You'll lift it up and turn it around to look at what the day actually looked like. Because you have to cover it in one page. And it has to be interesting. You don't want to bore future you. You don't want it to be just jotted words here and there. You want to craft it into prose. There's no better exercise for writing prose about something that didn't happen than writing prose every day about something that did. Because in either case, you're going to have to wrestle that something into a narrative that is shaped but not fake. And needless to say, pausing either in the morning or at night and holding up a chunk of recent time and looking at it in 3 dimensions, really taking a step back, taking a deep breath and thinking about it. Needless to say, that will also have huge personal benefits. Huge personal. It'll make you better at thinking. It'll make you better at seeing. It'll make you better at knowing yourself. Because at the end of that day, you'll look back on the day and you'll be thinking, okay, well, let's tot up what happened. What actually happened today? Did I go to work? If so, for how long? Did I take a break at work? If so, for how long and with whom? Did I not go to work? Did I get hurt? Did I pull a muscle? Did I exercise? Did I go to a class? Did I have a conversation with someone that was unusual? On the one hand, you'll be looking back and thinking of those things. But on the other hand, if you're doing it right, and with practice you will, you'll be thinking, okay, well, those are the things that I did, but this one thing is all that I'm thinking about. Now when I'm sitting here all day, it's been on my mind. Why? Why has that one thing been on my mind? Explain it to yourself in that day's journal entry. That's not the same thing as effusing. You're not just mimeographing the pain or the confusion or even the chaos of the thinking. Instead, you're trying to figure something out. You're trying to understand why that one thing is on your mind. And I find that invaluable, absolutely invaluable. And I want to show you how I do it, just on a pragmatic level, just in case in case you're curious. Some of you were, because quite a few of you mentioned journal keeping when I brought it up, but also in case it's an idea you might want to try. So I've got just a blank journal volume here, and you come to a blank page, and what I do is I have one of these things, because I'm basically a small child. I have one of these multicolored pens. I just think they're great. I think they're the coolest thing in the world. So what I do is, in bright red, I write the date up at the top left. So the day of the week, the day of the month, and the year. The whole thing. And I'll show you. There are a couple of things I do at the beginning of every entry that are totally quotidian. And I do it specifically to get my mind into the state of what the writing is going to be. You know, get that out of the way. Focus yourself. That's the first way that I do it, is to write the date down. And then I switch the color on the pen to green. And right underneath the date, oh no, the green's not working on this. All right, let's say blue. Let's say blue. I changed to another color is the whole point. I changed the color to blue, and in a box on the side, I write the quotidia of the day. Just the quotidia, nothing else, just that. So I write here, I will write the title and author of each book that I acquired that day and where I got it from. Here I will write in one quick line any money that I spent that day. Just a $, the amount, and a dash, and then what I spent it on. I might, here in this little box, I might write the weather. Or one salient piece of news that happened that day. A Mars rover lands. The capital of my country is breached by an angry mob. Where I'll put one salient note there. Sometimes the weather. Stuff like that. I'll put quotidian stuff in that little set-off box. That doesn't mean I might not mention it in the entry. But it's separate there in case that's all I feel like looking at. Future me feels like looking at. Then I switch the color to black. And I start writing the entry. And I know that I only have that page to do it all, to do everything. So that is what a page of a journal looks like for me. The date, the nitty-gritty quotidian details, and then the day as I write it out. And when I'm writing out the day, I try to start off by taking that kind of aerial view. What is this day that I'm chronicling? What is this day? What was it like? What stood out and why? And how am I feeling now when I write about it? Briefly, circumspectly, and in context. That sort of thing. So I know a lot of you keep separate journals for a whole bunch of separate things. You keep a reading journal or a dream journal or a gratitude journal or anything like that. I have, or you have a date book for all of the quotidian stuff, and it goes in there and not in your journal. And I had times in my life have done things like that, but I just end up with more things to lose. If I got just the one book and I include everything in that, that always works better for me. And right now what I'm doing is, if I get the New Republic or the New Yorker or whatever, most of that issue I'm not going to want to keep. If there's a book review that interests me or that's well done and it's about a book that I have, I will pull it out, I will trim the ragged edge, I will fold it, and I will put it in the book. But if there's an article in one of those periodicals or in the New York Review of Books or whatever that still is really good, keepable, rereadable, but that it doesn't fit in any, it doesn't go with any book, then I will put it in here. I will pull it out, trim the ragged edges, fold it, and put it in the back of the journal. I'll just be working my way towards that. Same thing with all other documentation. If I get a jury duty notifications slip, I'll put it in here so that I know where to find it. Tax documents, all that sort of stuff. Put all any notes or cards from all of you, for instance, or anything else. Put all of that in the journal. Just put it all in there for that 1 year. So I thought that's all I had to say. Really, it was just a couple of suggestions for you for how you might, whether or not you might want to try that. It works really well for me to break it down that way. The date, then the gristle of the day, and then the day itself, and then just keep going. Just keep going. As Thomas Mallon, the writer Thomas Mallon, wrote a book called A Book of One's Own about keeping a journal. And he addresses at the beginning, he has a great introductory essay about journal keeping, and he addresses at the beginning of that book the worry that some people who are coming to journal keeping have, that there won't be anything to write. Never mind keeping me to one page. How am I going to fill one page when I had a whole day in which nothing happened? And he points out in that introductory essay a line that I really, really love. He points out that nothing, in fact, hardly ever happens. That is absolutely true, and you will like it. You will like the experience. I firmly believe that. It is an incredible pressure valve that you can just turn on and will. Just amazing to periodically, regularly stop and reflect, so that if anything is going to enable you to catch unhealthy momentums and do something about them before they reach a point where they're controlling your actions, then that's going to do it. So at the risk of putting the entire psychotherapy profession out of business, I would strongly suggest keeping a journal. I would strongly suggest that you do that. The anal retentive order freak in me suggests that if you feel like starting, make it May the 1st or April the 1st. Make it April Fool's Day. Make it April the 1st. Don't start in the 20s of March. There's something wrong with that. But the 1st of a month? Sure, absolutely. When I started my journal, I started on November 22nd. I did start at the end of a month. But the 1st of a month is just fine. Think about it. Get yourself a journal. Line up how you want to do it. What way you want to do it, and then start on the 1st of April. Give it a try for a month. I think at the end of the month you will find it absolutely indispensable. I can't do without it myself. So there you go. That was a little video on journal keeping. I absolutely love it. Hannah at Hannah's Books, I think, was the one who mentioned also maybe a journal starter kit of famous journals. That's a terrific idea. You all know who my number one would be, but there are plenty of others. So I will add that to the list. But anyway, in the meantime, I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.